Hello and welcome to Hak It. Today I'm so excited to welcome the multifaceted, the multidimensional, the beauty and brains, Rosemary Ferguson.
Hello.
She is a model turned nutritionist, model and nutritionist. She is the global wellness brand ambassador for Christian Dior. She used to have her own clinic in Lanzerhof. She runs her own online members community called Our Health Club.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more coming. So this is also, by the way, I'm a fangirl because a couple of years ago, I remember finding Rose on Instagram and just loving her content. So much so that she convinced me on Instagram virtually to try juices, even though I don't do market bought juice fasts. But I did her juice fast where I actually bought a juicer. She convinced me to get organic vegetables and fruits, which costed a lot of money, and juice, and have her 5 juices. And I saw insane results, by the way. So the only juice fast I ever recommend to anybody, or I ever do myself, is Rosemary Ferguson's 5-day juice cleanse. And now I can't believe I have her on my podcast, and we're both going to geek out about nutrition, and we're also going to this time add a dimension of vanity and how nutrition plays such an important role in how you look and how you feel. So welcome, Rosemary Ferguson.
It's nice to be here.
I want everyone to hear your story.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
From the beginning. So how did you get into modeling? When did you get into modeling?
Okay, so modeling, well, I was scouted when I was 15 years old, and I was scouted in McDonald's, which everyone thinks is hilarious considering my current occupation. So I was scouted in McDonald's by the photographer Corinne Day, who actually thought I was a boy because I don't know. I was probably dressed, I can't remember what I was wearing, but it was probably something similar to what I wear now.
Very beautiful boy. Fair enough.
And then, and I did a few jobs, not with her, but I did do a few jobs, and I actually hated it. It was not for me. I wanted to, at the time I was a bit of a raver. I wanted to be out with my friends. It was actually, and then I suddenly had my hair all like shushed up and loads of makeup, and I was like, this just isn't me. So at the grand age of 15, I wrote to my agency very properly and said, I'm so sorry, I won't be doing this. And then at 17, I needed a car. And I thought, let me think about this. How can I get money for a car? So then I did go back. But actually, what was mad about that was, when you sort of go, the universe is looking after me, because the timing of going back was when grunge had started. And Corinne was taking loads of pictures at that time. So the timing for me was amazing. I mean, I think my first job was the cover of The Face. My second job was British Vogue. My third job was French Vogue with Paola. I mean, it was like, wow. It was luck.
And you were on the cover of Elle magazine last year?
Last year I was.
Wow.
I was.
This is amazing.
I did a cover of Vogue this year.
That's a very long, consistent cover girl career.
It's been a long time. I mean, it's
alongside doing like the 5 other jobs that you do and teaching the world to be a healthier place and how to eat. I mean, that's incredible.
It has been. Do you know, I mean, I think you never expect it to keep going. And also now, because I'm a veteran, you get brought to do jobs that are really nice and with really amazing people. And, people are really, they're always like, oh, you know everybody. I don't know, It feels so familiar. The fashion industry has been really good to me, I have to say. So, yeah.
But the fashion industry seems to be quite an unhealthy lifestyle. Because there's late night, all shoots at all times of the day, late night partying to keep yourself looking a certain way, a certain size on camera. People tend to adopt unhealthy food practices. So were you similar and then you kind of changed, or were you always, intrigued about this healthy lifestyle? What was that story like?
Well, my background is I come from a very holistic, and it used to be called alternative medicine background. So my grandmother was one of the first women to own a health food shop in this country. And my mum is a kinesiologist, and I grew up on homeopathic medicine. So I grew up with that psyche.
Amazing.
And so so when I started modelling, it was quite unhealthy. I've always eaten quite well, but I think booze and late nights, and then I would sort of balance it with eating right and having the juice. I actually would have to say that I feel happier in my body now than I did then. And I don't know if that's because you're in a fashion environment where everyone's like going, but But I also think that my body works better now than it did then. And when I look at pictures back then, I can just, when you just go, oh, I was quite puffy actually, possibly because of all the nights and the food.
Interesting.
But I think the fashion industry is not fantastic, and it's only sort of been a realization in the last 8 years, I think, that actually that did impact my body image. Because you are being judged every single day on how you look, how your body is. But my experience of it was I didn't ever have an issue around eating. I don't think I think I probably should have cared a bit more about, watching what I was eating, but I didn't. And when you're young, you can get away with it. But I do think it probably does foster bad relationships with your body and food. But also it's somewhere where you can, in most studios, you get really great food. Well, it's definitely in America. Here, not so much. Here we used to get, I think it's very different now. When I went and did the 30-year Miu Miu show because I was the very first Miu Miu girl.
Right.
In the ad campaigns. I did their first 2 campaigns. And so I went and did the show in Paris, and I was like, wow, Guido the hairdresser. I was like, and Pat McGrath, they would go, I was like, this is not how it used to be. There's no champagne. We always, even a 9 o'clock show, you'd get champagne. And there's really healthy food, which, was not my experience at all. So I think they've sort of understood that you have to look, these girls are young, you need to look after them.
Yeah. Wow. So that's amazing. I think 2 really interesting things you said. One, I think it's so nice to hear that you're feeling better in your body today, being older than when you did in your early 20s when you were modeling. And I think it's an interesting observation I've made. Foodhak is all about longevity through nutrition, intelligent nutrition, right? And so I've always got my eyes and ears open when people say things like this. It's like data collection for me. If you speak to your mom or that generation, right, you would often hear them say growing up that, I'm older now. I don't have that kind of energy. So don't bother me, don't trouble me. Like, just sit there and eat your food because I'm growing old. But actually, this generation, you hear people say, or at least in today's day and age, you hear people say that I feel better in my body today. I have more energy. I can say the same, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel that I'm more energetic than I was in my 20s, which is insane.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's really, really good to hear, and it's encouraging to hear for entrepreneurs like us who are trying to educate people to eat in a certain way. Right? So I think that was amazing when you said that. And so tell us what happened. So you wanted a car. This is the easiest way. You got into modeling. You were the face of Miu Miu. So now where are we? In your early 20s? Like, what kind of pushed you into making that transition and really dedicating yourself into nutrition? Because I know you also studied it later in life. So tell us about that.
Well, I think so. It went from 0 to 100 really fast. I moved to New York. I did finish my A-levels by the skin of my teeth. And then I was going to go to university. That didn't happen. I moved to New York when I was 18. And then what actually was quite a big fat curveball in my 20s was I was pregnant at 23. And so I had a baby at 24. And my little girl, who's now 25. So you can do the maths and understand what birthday is coming next week. We're not discussing it. But
age is just a number.
Exactly. There's a big fat birthday coming next week. But so I had her, and that meant I moved back to London. And then things changed a little bit. I mean, it didn't change that much, but it did change a bit. I mean, she used to come to work with me. I'd take her everywhere. That's what I mean. The fashion industry can be quite cool because at that time it was a little bit more, it wasn't so highly produced and polished as it is now. It was a little bit softer, I would say, around the edges. So she would come with me everywhere I'd go. And then I suppose it's made me start thinking about what am I going to do, because I don't want to, there is usually a time limit on modelling, and that is dictated by your age, usually. So I started thinking...
You're defying that, clearly.
Yeah,
But okay,
well,
keep going.
thank you. So then, and then I had another baby at 30 and 31. So by the time I was 31, I had 3 kids, and I didn't want to travel so much. I didn't want to be away. I really wanted to be around for them. And I was also, irregardless of that, I was thinking about what's my next steps, because I like working. I really do. And so, and then it sort of was like, I want to do nutrition. I want to know why I'm feeding these children, what I'm feeding them. I want to understand it, and I want to practice. And that was the key. I want to practice. And that meant I had to go and get qualified. So at the grand age of 32, I went back to school. And it really does show. I love talking about this because I think it shows women who have got kids, you can start over and start again, or not start over. Actually, you just build on the experience you have. But you can go and learn something new. So so I did 3 years of nutrition and naturopathy. Then I went on and did 3 years of functional medicine at the Institute of Functional Medicine, and then as my final thing, and I'm not doing a PhD before anyone says it, I did my master's, a Master of Science in Advanced Nutrition and Practice.
It's amazing.
And I do think, I do, everyone's like, why? I was always at school, everyone's like, oh my God, what's she doing now? My friends, every Christmas, every holidays, I would do like dissertations and assignments. And I think it was probably driven through a bit of imposter syndrome. Model turned nutritionist. I was like, well, I'm going to show you. I am going to be the most qualified nutritionist there is. But I think also it was just wanting to know my trade really well, and and I love what I do. But so I think it came a bit from my background, a bit from the fashion industry and being on set with things like quinoa in the 90s and going, oh, what's this? And then having kids, and then really just wanting to get back and work in a field that I love and can control. But modelling is not out of your control. It's whether someone books you or not. And I wanted to have a job that I could build on that I loved, and I'm lucky that I do something I absolutely love.
I think that's so inspiring. First of all, did you know that this is a fun fact? Most successful entrepreneurs, all have an imposter syndrome.
Do you?
Yes.
So that's a good sign.
You're an outlier. And it's good to be an outlier. Yeah, it's true.
That is.
We're all trying to prove. I'll show you. We've all been rejected or, had that feeling where we're not good enough.
Yes.
So we have this fire in our belly, this hunger where I will show you.
That is so true. It's funny actually, because I was talking about things I tell my younger self, and one of them is every time you get rejected, every time you get knocked down, you get back up, but it makes you stronger. That is really interesting.
And it also instills that fire in you that I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to prove it to the world. And more importantly, I'm going to prove it to myself that I can do this, and I can do it, and I can be the best at it.
Yes.
I can be number one. Like, I can do this.
Yeah. That's so exactly how it feels. So I need to know everything so that I can be the best.
I love meeting people who have an imposter syndrome because then I relate.
I definitely did. I think when I started my master's, which slightly overlapped with my functional medicine, everyone was like, you are mad. I was like, yeah, but MSc sounds good after you know it.
That is true. I don't think I know many models who have an MSc next to your name.
I do.
Yes,
and
you do.
It was blood, sweat and tears.
And you earned it. Yes, you deserve it.
That was a hard one, actually, because it was very different. And they kept saying to me, when you find your academic voice, I was like, oh my God, if you say that one more time, academic voice, I was like,
oh gosh, that's so funny. But actually, what I find even more interesting is the functional medicine bit. So you were studying it decades ago when it wasn't even a thing.
I think I did my functional medicine about 10 years ago. So yeah.
But it was, I mean, today it's like a thing, because the American functional medicine doctors, were doing amazing work. Peter Attia, Mark Hyman, all these guys spreading the word. People are aware of this term. And in the UK as well, you're finding a lot of young doctors who are sort of leaving the Western side, or maybe keeping a part of that and then dedicating the remaining part into getting into functional medicine. But it's a thing today where people know. I think you were probably a little ahead of your time to identify it and go after it and study it. and get qualified in
Get
it.
qualified, I know. Well, when I qualified as a certified functional medicine practitioner, there were only, I think there are only 200 in this country. I don't know that there's loads more now because it
I'm
takes
sure there
quite a
are.
lot of time, but I'm sure there are.
I mean, I must follow at least 200 in this country today.
I
So,
believe
you
it,
know what I
yeah.
mean? I'm sure
Yeah.
there are more.
Yeah, so but also people always say what is functional medicine, and it is the easiest way of explaining it is that it's holistic. It is just another term for holistic medicine, because what we're looking at is we're looking at the whole, and it's not just the whole body, it's the whole environment, the whole life that that person has, from their if they have symptoms, to their relationships, to their birth, to how they were fed when they were born, to how they grew up, where they grew up, where what environment they grew up in. So it's quite it is a very holistic approach, and it makes so much sense. It's like, why would you treat, I don't know, just one symptom and not look at where that symptom's come from and why it's happened? Why are you getting a thyroid? Why is your thyroid off?
Yeah.
Why? I think
amazing.
people think it's a bit vague sometimes when I see them in clinic and I'm asking them, like really obscure questions like, do you have mold? Have you ever lived anywhere damp? They're like, well, or no food poisoning, because on my actual intake form, there's one that says, do you have food poisoning? And you can tell when some people answer it, they're like, yeah, why? It's sort of like that. Yeah, years ago, it's fine. I'm like, it might not be. All these things affect you and how your health is. So
Interesting. So just out of curiosity, let's go a little bit deeper into this, because even you've got me curious now. I did have food poisoning once. What does that mean?
So depending on the food poisoning, food poisoning really disrupts your microbiome. So if someone is having digestive issues 10 years later and you say, when did it start? And they say 10 years ago, and you've had food poisoning at that point, they're likely, I mean, this is a very general, but there is a really high chance that incident and that event is affecting your microbiome now. It's entirely possible that that's the case. So it's just, because when something changes in gut health, for example, someone suddenly develops symptoms of IBS,
Right.
what's the trigger? Was it very stressful? Was it food poisoning? Was it a course of antibiotics? Because it's really helpful to find that trigger if you can. It's not always possible. I mean, sometimes it's great and you're like, oh, there it is.
Right.
But but it can really have a long-lasting effect.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's say, let's look at functional medicine, and let's say you were giving advice to a community
Yeah.
who is looking to unlock longevity.
Yeah.
And by longevity, I mean living longer and disease-free. So your happiest life, right?
Yeah.
Health span and lifespan. So what would be some of the tips for it?
I mean, the longevity world is really interesting, and there's loads of great geeky techie stuff. It's amazing, but I think that's off-putting to lots of people because it feels outside their reach.
Yeah.
But actually, there's so many things. And when I talk to people who are like, oh, and they sort of put longevity over there, I'm like, no, look at the blue zones.
Yeah.
Look at the blue zones, because the blue zones are not using red lights, they're not using cryotherapy, they're not using NAD injections.
That's true.
They are using whole food, functional movement throughout the day. I'd say sedentaryism is one of the biggest issues that we have. But community also. They're eating whole food community. They have community. They move throughout the day. And they, I think those are and they eat locally actually. So the thing with blue zones, when we talk about them, there's no specific foods that you can talk about, because what is true to all blue zones is that they eat local produce.
Yes.
And so it's different depending on which blue zone we're talking about. But I would say that, those are, I think functional movement's really important. I am a really bad one for doing an hour in the gym and then sitting at my computer for the next 10 hours. That is a sedentary lifestyle. So get off your bloody chair, go and have a walk at lunchtime, go and have a walk in the afternoon.
Or do a walking call. Do one call walking.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And then eating whole foods. I mean, the problem that we are up against it with food, because we are, sold so, advertised, bombarded with information about crappy food all the time. And even the greenwashing, I don't know if you know the term greenwashing, where people like plant food, actually this must drive you mad. This is really healthy fake meat. It's not healthy. And because it's plant food, people are sort of assuming, because that's what it looks like, that it's healthy. So it's really difficult for people to make the right choices because there's so much misinformation out there.
Yeah. True. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about nutrition, our favorite topic.
Yes.
And for the first time, it would be nice to hear the audience hear from someone else talking about nutrition rather than me going on and on about it. Yeah, like what are some of the tricks that you can, like what are some of the things you like to incorporate in, let's say, look at it from a month perspective, right? Like make sure I've had this and I've had this and I've had this and these are the ideas for my dinner, because there's all kinds of principles, right? Like your gut has how many, 3 trillion bacteria?
Right,
Some are
yeah.
good, some are bad.
Yeah.
You want the good ones to be happy. They're
Yes.
happy when there's diversity,
Yes.
right? 30 different plants a week. Then comes a discussion of protein. You have animal protein versus plant protein. Then comes a discussion of superfoods. Then comes a discussion of cleanse. How do you think about all that when you think of planning your month?
Oh my God, that's just made my brain go.
I know, it's
It's
just...
I suppose I think listening to you, so it's difficult because there are so many different ways you can do it. So it's not what you eat. It's not only what you eat, it's how you eat as
Yeah.
well, when you
Yeah.
eat. There's so, so I suppose. if
Yeah,
we
tell
look-
us all of that.
Okay, so I think if we think about how you eat, and it is really simple, but people don't, is when you sit down to eat, take 4 deep breaths, 4 box breaths. That moves your body from the sympathetic, your cortisol state, into a parasympathetic, your rest and digest. People digest. We need to digest state. So if you do 4 box breaths and then you chew your food, those are 2 of the most important things that anyone can do. And you would be amazed. And I don't mean you have to chew your food until, for 50 chews.
Right.
But people, I watch how fast people eat. I eat quite fast. If you're not
I eat
concentrating, you can
fast.
just go.
Especially when you're hungry or when you fasted.
Yes,
Or,
yes.
yeah, I know.
And then your body's like, whoa, we're not ready, So you have to give your it doesn't take much, but it can be really a big changer. And then how to eat also timing wise. So the big one is intermittent fasting. People always want to know about that.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
So I'm not a massive fan of a very small window. I think most people do very well on a 10-hour to 12-hour eating window.
Yeah.
And 3 complete meals. Unless there is a reason for you to have smaller meals, like you have low blood sugar. If you're very, very stressed, you might need to eat more often. If you're young, I'm assuming that the audience for this isn't under 18, but if you're under 18, under 25, you might need to eat more frequently. But it's shorter eating windows. So we're on our health club actually. We've just done the first phase of a Jan plan. And that I did reduce the window to 8 hours just to rest the gut and the liver. We're in the metabolic phase now, which I've moved it to 10 hours. And people are like, but surely we should be eating less if we're trying to lose weight. I was like, no, that's the point, is that actually you need to fuel your metabolism steadily so that it doesn't start slowing itself down because it doesn't know when it's getting fed. So, and I think, if you've got a thyroid issue, I think people who are very stressed tend to fast for longer, and that is exactly the wrong thing to do.
Interesting.
Because it adds stress to the stress.
Right.
So your body's like, okay, your body's reading all the information all the time, and your brain's going, okay, we don't have fuel for this. So then it might slow your thyroid down. It's just, I think you have to do what works for you. So if you're hungry in the morning, then eating earlier in the day is quite important, I guess. Not bring that eating window forward a bit.
Yeah.
And then for what you fuel with, there are really simple things like having half your plate of multicolored vegetables is really nice for the gut. And you're right, so the good bacteria you need to fuel, but the bad bacteria, they are there too. They're part of your commensals, which means that part of your microbiome has. So it's really, when we talk about bad bacteria, it's not that it's bad when it gets overgrown. So if that colony that we don't like so much gets too high, then it can cause issues.
Digestive issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But actually, we just need it to be balanced.
Correct.
Someone described it as an orchestra.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yes, it could be like an orchestra. So it all has to play together, and when one of them's off and it starts playing out of tune, that's when you can get issues. So feeding lots of different plants is really good, definitely.
Do you follow an order in which you eat? So you eat the plants on your plate first, and then followed by proteins and fats, or you're less bothered about that?
I suppose I have a bit of everything together, but if you are concerned about blood glucose, the best way to
It helps.
It does help, because the reason it helps is fibre acts like a mesh. So when you eat fibre, it's, if you think about fibrousness, it creates like a barrier for, it means that when you eat the protein, which is hard to digest, and then you eat the carbohydrate, it's got to get through all of that before it gets to your bloodstream. So yeah, if you have issues with blood glucose control,
It helps.
it would help. Yeah.
What about pre and postbiotics?
So prebiotics, I think you should. Well, prebiotics you can get easily from food, unless you really are low, then you can take. So prebiotic foods are really good, like things like onions, leeks, and
They're natural prebiotics, and
Natural
I actually,
prebiotics,
weirdly enough, it's quite common in India to have like a curry with like rice or whatever you're having it with, and then have this like cut salad which has onions, it has cucumbers and tomatoes. It's very
delicious
common.
that salad.
Yeah, but it's raw onions, right?
Yeah.
And like because I grew up on this stuff, where onions, the reason why the onions are there is because it's a natural prebiotic. Yes.
Yeah, well, it is.
And so I'm now so used to having a curry and rice, like I need those onions.
Yes.
And people sometimes who are not Indian, they find it really strange. Like, how do we have onions, raw onions? I'm like, I don't know what it is, but it just helps me digest my curry and rice better.
Yeah.
So that's why like I've never really taken prebiotics, because I'm also a bit of a extremist in that sense, where I don't take Western medicine. By the way, I started my career at Pfizer, which is when I decided I'm never going to touch this stuff as much as possible, only when I'm desperate.
Yeah.
And so even like supplements, to a large extent, minerals, stuff that actually doesn't get lost in food cooking. Vitamins are small molecules, fine, fair enough, I get it. Minerals, phosphates, they kind of stay. So I tend to kind of try and get it from food. Same with like prebiotics. So I've never taken prebiotics, but then I see people promoting prebiotics, and I'm like, I'm sure it has, I'm sure there's benefits to it. I've just never really taken it.
I mean, I agree with you. I think food first is a really good policy to have, and especially with fibre. Part of the reason prebiotics are needed is because we don't eat enough fibre. We eat a third or a quarter of what we should be eating, what the human body is designed to eat.
How much should we be eating?
I think it's 100 grams, and we eat 25 a day on average. So that means some
Really?
people are eating 2, and some people are eating 100.
Interesting.
So
I'm going to check how much I eat, because I tend to measure everything just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
We'll measure that next time.
Because that would, if you increased your fibre is what the bacteria feed on, and that's what we need to make our bacterial colony good. So, but prebiotics are the food, probiotics are the bacteria,
Right.
and then postbiotics are what the bacteria make. So if your prebiotics are out, then you're not going to be supporting the bacterial colony, and that bacterial colony is not going to be making the postbiotics. Like short-chain fatty acids are what a postbiotic is, like butyrate and propionate.
So who needs pre and postbiotics? Those people who don't necessarily eat as well as they should?
Well, yes. So prebiotics are really useful, and also the other thing around prebiotics or prebiotic foods are people with a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, a SIBO, will be told that's what a FODMAP is. It takes them all out, because you're feeding bacteria in the small intestine that you don't want to be feeding.
Right.
So that's when you start losing fibre, because a FODMAP diet removes all of them.
Correct.
And to kill off the bacteria in the small intestine, which is where it shouldn't be. So those people shouldn't take prebiotics. Well, they sort that out, and then they should be definitely eating fibre, because people stop altogether. So I think people with probiotics, so if you've had antibiotics and your bacterial colony has taken a hit, then it would make sense to me to take both of them, to take all three actually, because the postbiotics are really important for our immune system and everything. So if your bacterial colony is under the weather, then you can support what it would be making with a postbiotic. So I do use postbiotics sometimes in clinic. The prebiotic portion, I usually will give it with food. I'll just be like, increase that. But also the other thing about prebiotics are that people then go, oh, but I've got really loads of gas, I'm bloated. I'm like, yeah, because your bacterial colony is going mental, because it's got loads of fuel. So it's all exciting. It'll calm down, but just stick with it for a few weeks. So yeah.
Interesting. So what are some of the natural prebiotics? So we spoke about raw onions.
So raw, well, all fibre actually. I mean, the bacteria will, even meat. I mean, meat doesn't have much fibre in it, but it's all good for bacterial colony. So also whole grains, nuts, seeds, all vegetables. But things like really good ones with, that are very, very good prebiotics are the onions, leeks, garlic, fennel is a good one actually. Fennel's a really good one.
Yeah.
So things like that are really, really
one of the things I love.
good. That's why you don't need to take prebiotics.
Maybe, yeah. Let's talk about plant protein, right? So you've got your lovely lentils, and you've got chickpeas, and you've got red kidney beans, pinto beans, cannellini beans, like so many different beans, right? Now, the protein content obviously isn't as close to, let's say a piece of chicken breast, which is lean or whatever it is. But, it's got more fiber. It does have a bit more carbohydrates as well.
Yes.
So what are your views on that? How much should you be eating? Because one of the other problems I've heard with beans is that people tend to complain that it makes me quite gassy, or, it makes me bloated, or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's such a clean source of protein. It's growing in nature, how it's supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? What are your views on that?
So it's the same. So the reason people feel gassy is it's the same that I've just said, is that the bacterial colony is really thrilled because it's got so much fiber coming in.
Oh,
and so it gets very, very, active, and it creates, in the same way that we create gas from meat, it create, the bacteria create metabolites. They create, waste and gas. And also, if you have, methane producing bacteria, we have methane producing bacteria, we have lots of different, hydrogen producing bacteria, histamine producing bacteria. So if you have a high amount of methane producing bacteria, and then you have lots and lots of fibrous food from beans and legumes, they will create quite a lot of gas, and that gas will be very odorous, to say the least. But it will calm down. The colony will settle. But unfortunately, for people who are not used to eating beans and legumes, it's such a shocker when they do, that they just label it as something that makes them bloated and gassy, and they rule it out of their diet.
They shouldn't do
They
that.
should. If they continued, then it will improve, because the bacterial colony will improve, but it will also settle down, because it will be used to, your fiber content will go up there, so. And then, I think beans and legumes are an amazing. I mean, yesterday I had nothing at home, but I did have a jar of butter beans and some tomatoes, and and a jacket potato, and you're just like, okay, I got zero, but I do have a jar of beans, and and it's just, I don't know, they're so easy to use, they're so versatile.
Yeah.
And on the carbohydrate front, which, I mean, they're kind of like a perfect food, because they've got a bit of carbohydrate, they've got fiber, they've got protein. But they do have, the thing about carbohydrates and calories are that a bean is a really good example of, a lot of it doesn't get digested because it's hard fiber, so it's insoluble fiber, and it passes straight through you. But on the way out, it helps to absorb rubbish from the liver, it helps to package up and ship out any waste that you have, it helps the bowel to move really smoothly, it helps keep your colon healthy, your bowel healthy.
Interesting.
So, so the fiber content sort of negates the, people's worry about carbohydrate and calorie. I mean, they're not high calories, but.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. This was really insightful, because, they are quite controversial, because of this, right? And then people tend to kind of compare it to like animal protein,
which has got no carbohydrate.
Yeah, but then it does have cholesterol. Which these don't.
Yes.
I don't know. I somehow feel a lot cleaner having plant protein than not.
I mean, I am an omnivore. I always have been, and so I'm very, very happy. I'm the same. I don't eat very much meat, because the only meat I will buy has to be really great quality.
Yeah.
So I buy less meat. I buy better quality.
Yeah.
And I have it twice a week, and the rest of the time we're plant-based, and that's how it should be.
And that was Blue Zones, right? They had meat or fish to kind of treat themselves, not to have it like every day. 3 times
a day, some people. Eggs and bacon in the morning, sausages at lunch, and steak at night. And you're like,
I know.
I'm not a vegetable inside.
I know. I've actually just joined this amazing personal training thing where, all personal trainers just encourage you to focus on the protein bit because of muscle building, and, they can see great results. And I was like, just talking to him today, I was like, but the biggest, the best performing bodybuilders in the world are actually plant-based. So if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
So rather than pushing me towards consuming more and more animal meat or protein, which listen to your body is what they say, right?
Yeah.
My body is not attracted to that. My body type doesn't suit it.
No.
I'm more attracted to the plant protein. Just makes me feel better about myself. Maybe it's
Yeah.
my body makeup. So it's really interesting that you've got these different players in the ecosystem,
Yeah.
who are all motivated by different things.
Yes.
And the poor nutrition piece is kind of left confused.
I know. I mean, I feel it's so hard for people.
It's very hard. You're left super confused.
I mean, the protein thing at the moment is, I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, you have to remember, think about 2 years ago, fat was having its day. It was all about good fats. Everyone was talking about keto. I said, it's protein's turn now. So, and what happens is someone gives it a figure of 30 grams of protein at breakfast, and then suddenly everyone's eating, or, what are they saying? 1 gram per pound. So, because I work in kilos, which is basically, so that is 1 pound per pound. So that's 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight a day. That's a lot. And you know what, it just goes from there, it goes from sort of balance to major extreme when it comes into the light, and protein's in the light at the moment. And all I can say is that's a lot of protein. If you are doing an hour in the gym and sitting at your desk, that's a hell of a lot of protein. It's a lot for your kidneys to deal with.
But see, the thing is, all of this requires understanding and education, right? Because there are certain vegetables where whether it's organic or not organic, it doesn't matter.
No.
Carrots.
Yes.
How does it matter? It grows with the skin on top, which you peel off anyway, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I suppose some people say because they absorb water, so it depends what's in the water, in the ground. That's the only other thing that I would say.
I mean,
you can't get around that. And also, actually, it is about having perspective. It's like, well, actually, if I'm going to switch from having oven chips to having broccoli, whether it's organic or not, that is one hell of a positive
I
step.
agree. I also believe in incremental changes.
Yeah.
I'm like people talk to me about glycosification. So let's have a supplement which you take before having any fruit or veg, because it then counteracts the effect of glycosification. I'm like, listen, before you even get, because it's all about spending money, right? How can I,
So you're going to save money on buying glyphosate sprayed food, but you're going to spend it on a supplement.
Exactly my point. Now when you start looking at house budgets, you are spending money on buying omega-3 tablets, which you can get from, I don't know, consuming foods or magnesiums or, different types of minerals, phosphate, whatever it is, which you can get from your food.
Yeah.
Right? You're spending money on protein powders. You can get protein from your food, right? Then you're spending money on these glycosificate thingies. Then you're spending money on apple cider vinegar or apple cider vinegar gummies. Then you're spending money. It's like, why don't you guys just take one little step? Just buy whole foods, buy legumes, buy beans, buy your vegetables. Don't worry about all this stuff. Start there.
Yeah.
You're going to end up saving all that budget. These are expensive, by the way. A tablet of each of these, a bottle of each of these things is nothing less than 30 quid. Suddenly you have 5 bottles, 10 bottles, 30 times 10, 300 quid. Yeah. That is someone's monthly budget for plants.
Yes.
Right?
That's so true.
So,
I mean, that is the number one thing I would say anyone can do, is to start eating right. As much as you can, and just and just include more vegetables, eat meat, better quality, twice a week, and then lean into the plants and nuts and seeds and eggs. I actually really like eggs. They don't work for everybody, and I know, in clinic I've had lots of people who love eggs who we've taken them off and they felt better. We've put them back on and they have still still not done very well with them. But it's just I don't know. To me, it seems so straightforward because it is rocket science.
Yeah.
I love nerding out, and I love, there's some really fantastic, unbelievably intricate supplements and products that I can use in my toolbox for people. But the first one is what you're actually eating every single day. Every single thing you eat is information for your body. It's what fuels every single thing, and I think people don't think about that because the body's amazing and it will support you for a very long time. But when we're talking about health span and longevity, you might live till you're 80, but if you're on medication from the time you're 45 and then you're in a chair from the time you're 60, not living, I would say.
Yeah.
And your body has to have good information in order for it to operate well. And that information primarily comes from what you eat. It comes from your environment, it comes from what you do. But one of the biggest parts as well is what you eat.
Oh, absolutely.
So-
I mean, in fact, like the biggest proof is if you look at diseases like chronic diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's. Now there is overwhelming science that the doctors clearly tell you that once you get the disease, it's too late. Nothing can be done to reverse it.
Yeah.
If you know someone in your family who's had it, you need to start working on it a decade or two earlier
Yes.
with lifestyle.
Yeah.
Big part of your lifestyle is nutrition.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other bits as well, of course. Like
yeah.
nutrition can't just hold the fort if you are drinking heavily,
Yes.
or if you're not sleeping well, or if you're not, meditating or listening to, music or whatever it is to work on, the holistic side of things.
Yeah.
But 80% of your lifestyle is nutrition. So if you don't start working 10 to 20 years before getting dementia, you're going to get it. But if you do start working on it 10 to 20 years before,
Yeah.
you can potentially reverse it,
Yes.
or it definitely, extend the onset of it. Isn't that like priceless?
I think it's so pricey, and I think it's the same for, all chronic disease could be potentially fixed by changing how you ate
reversed.
before.
Absolutely.
And Alzheimer's and dementia is called type 3 diabetes in my world, because and that just shows you, it's called type 3 diabetes, and what causes type 3 diabetes? Eating too many sugars. And so,
Interesting. Yeah.
so it's kind of, I totally agree with you. I could rant on about it all day long. I could.
Yeah.
I could go on and
But
on.
you know what? I think an interesting subject that I want to talk to you about is cleanses and detox.
Yeah,
You're definitely one of those who believes in it,
yeah.
right? So tell us why, the science behind that, and why you believe in it, and what are the best ways of doing it.
Okay, so I have done plans for people for years and years and years, and then I did the 5-day plan, which was a food delivery, to show people that if they change what they eat in 5 days, they can feel completely different. And the idea of the 5-day plan was that it was an eating plan, so it wasn't restrictive. It was 3 meals a day. It even had a juice and a snack in it, which I might nowadays take out.
Yeah.
But it had 3 full meals, a juice and a snack for 5 days. And the tagline was "Feel fresh by Friday." And it was amazing. Like, in order to, I wasn't trying to prove a concept, because I just know that if you change what you can eat, you can change your body really fast and how you feel. But it was really cool, because everybody, and we had it, I ran it for years. It was like, I can't believe how different I feel. And then over COVID, I took the plans online. So now I do 4 big plans a year, probably throughout the year. And then on our health club, we also do little ones, in the other months. And I suppose the thing about resets I don't love the word cleanses or detoxes, because
It sounds restrictive.
it sounds restrictive. And actually, I'm all about showing people that actually exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you eat properly, you can change. So, for example, the Jan plan that's on at the moment there is no fasting in it at all. In fact, it's really trying to lean into healthy hibernation, like digital detox. So I think the issue that I have with detoxes and cleanses are that people use them as part of a binge purge cycle.
Right.
So that is where I pulled back a little bit on. I do a juice one from time to time, but
What makes you do it?
So
When do you do it?
Oh, I will do a juice. I will do it probably around spring, around that time, just because it's a nice time of year to do it. And I'll do it for mental clarity. I do it for clarity. I do it to rest my gut. I do not do it for weight loss. It does not work for weight loss.
Interesting.
Well, it might, obviously, while you're fasting, it does. But then you're going to eat again.
Yeah, that's true. So it kind of counterbalances.
Yeah, it's really nice to lighten everything. But I think if you're going to do these things, you can't go into it off the back of Glastonbury. Go and do a juice fast. I think I've probably done this. That's why I'm saying it. Go do a juice fast to fix what you did at Glastonbury, and keep doing that cycle. If you're going to do resets, so if I do a slightly more aggressive reset that does include a juice fast in it, we'll spend 5 days getting to the point where we do that, and then we'll spend 5 days coming out the other side. And the idea is that they're brilliant for giving you a little boost. They're brilliant for if you're feeling sluggish, but they do have to be part of a well-balanced world. They cannot be. The issue with them is that they cause this binge purge mentality.
Yes.
And I mean, I wrote a book on juice in 10 years ago, I think. And I stopped talking about juice because people
were misusing it. Yeah.
People were abusing it. And I mean, it sounds ridiculous to talk about vegetable juices. But it's like, no, that's not. It's a really bad relationship with food to get into. And it's very, very, very common.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a yo-yo diet. We just now call it dysfunctional eating, but it's the same.
So you should, if you think about juicing or juice fast, you should think about it for, reasons like giving your gut a rest,
Yeah, very good.
mental clarity, energy, and not necessarily for like crash, weight loss or whatever. I agree with you. I mean, frankly, if you buy market juices, because I've done both, because I'm always testing
Yes,
things, and so I've made my own juices
Yes.
following your recipes, and I love the night one. It's my favorite.
It's so nice, that
The
one.
avocado date.
Like, you sort of just slip into bed like, oh.
It was so good, so good. And it actually satiates you, to be honest.
Yes, it does.
And I enjoyed it. I think I did. Did I do all 5? Or I might have done a 3-day one. I can't remember. And I was fine. Like I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Then I was like, you fall into that, because I did lose weight.
Yes.
And I was
Me
like,
too.
oh, this is great, because remember when I did it, I just had Sumer, my youngest
Okay,
one, and so I did have a little bit of weight that I wanted to just quickly get rid of. So it did help with that,
Oh, that's good.
right? Because salt, there was no salt, so again that helps with water retention and all that stuff. So then when I put on a bit of weight during a holiday, I remember thinking, let me order market juices and do it again. See, I fell into that trap of
Yes.
using it. And frankly, I didn't enjoy it this time, because the thing about juicing, at least what I've found, the science behind it is if you drink it instantly, right, it's very different to drinking it hours later. There's something
Yes.
about decay and sugars and breakdown of, fructose and fibers and all of that complex interaction, that somehow it works well when you freshly juice and you drink it. Like, it doesn't disrupt your blood sugars as much as when you buy a market pressed juice, which was God knows when it was produced. Do you know what I mean? That made me really hangry, and I knew my hormones were all over the place, my cravings were all over the place, my hunger was all over, and I knew it was my blood sugars were not the way they're meant to be, and I was feeling it because I'm quite aware of this, but I didn't feel that with
I wonder if did they have, because quite a lot of market juices have quite a lot of apple juice in them. So then
they must have been using some fruit, because there were 5 or something in a day, right? So I'm sure there were fruits involved in the different juices, and instantly that's turned into sugar.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, it hits the
So-
bloodstream really
Very
it
fast.
hits it very fast, and it will definitely cause an insulin spike and
Yeah.
glucose spike instantly. I mean, I think juices they're funny because people love or hate them, and I think they're useful. I do think they're useful, but I don't think, if you hate them, then don't,
Yeah, if it doesn't suit you.
it doesn't suit you.
Fair
But I
enough.
do think it is good to, I find it, also the other thing about it, if you're going to do a prolonged juice fast, or if you're going to do prolonged anything, I think there is something in the world of busyness that it's quite nice to take yourself off to do 5 days and just really, so if you're going to do it, try and make sure you get a massage or go for a walk, or, just really, if you're going, because I think if you're doing it just as I'm just going to do
Yeah.
that to fix it, doesn't necessarily work. Whereas if you actually
Yeah.
consider what you're going to do and sort of make it like
More
self-care,
intentional.
more
Yes.
if you
Yes,
have
I agree.
exactly the intention you go in with it,
Yeah, I agree.
you
What do you think about water fasts?
So water fasts, what do I think? I think that you need to be very cautious. I think with any fast you need to be cautious, but particularly water. So when you're having juices, at least you're getting some nutrition which will help your liver. So basically, when you fast, your body starts to release. You hold a lot of toxic waste, toxins in your fat. So when you start to mobilize your fats, then you start releasing quite a lot. You don't know what's in your fats, but if you had you take lots of medication, you live somewhere very environmentally where you're inhaling lots of pollutants, you drink a lot, whatever it is, you smoke, your fat's going to have quite a lot of crap in it, basically. That's a really horrible image, but when you're at least when you're juicing, you have got some greens going in, which is really good for the liver to support the liver, the liver detox pathways. When you're water fasting, people can go from feeling very fine to very unwell quite quickly. Because
it should be done under supervision.
Well, it should be done, or really spend a week getting into it, of making sure that you're eating nice liver foods and support, like sort of cleansing, for want of a better word, foods like cruciferous vegetables and things, to get you ready to do a water fast. And I would be very cautious to do any more than 24 hours without supervision.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not me covering my back, but just go gently, because it's quite intense. But some people, I mean, I have patients who it's life changing for some people. They're like, I can't believe I can feel this well. But I'd be very cautious. And actually, I do want to. One thing that people always talk about when it comes to fasting is they say you lose lots of muscle mass, and the answer is yes, you do. But the response is, we know now that actually you lose quite a lot of muscle mass during an extended fast, but you repair and rebuild that muscle really, really fast when you start back at with food. So it's quite interesting that. So we synthesize proteins to make muscle really efficiently post-fast.
That's really insightful.
I know, it's quite
people forget to mention that or think about that.
Yeah,
that's interesting. And what are your views on like a raw diet? So that's kind of like a fast where you're basically just having, or even just like fruit, like just raw fruit, plant-based, raw for like 21 days or for, I don't know, 3 months or 6 months. I mean, you've seen, like, for those who work, and the caveat here is, like everything in life, we are complex creatures. Everything should be personalized. If medicine is personalized, food should be personalized, because there is no one size fits all in this. So there are certain people where it really works for them, this whole raw thing, and you see a body transformation, you see the way they're feeling, their skin, it does make a difference, but sounds a little extreme. But I don't know, what are your views on that?
I think raw, I did raw when, I don't know, a long time ago, and I loved it, because you get really into it. You're like, okay, what can I make out of, whatever, you can, and there's crazy cookbooks out there.
Like Novak Djokovic is a raw vegan. And you've seen him on the tennis floor, the tennis whatever.
Tennis court.
Tennis court.
Also known as the court.
Oh, yeah, also known as the court. Oh, God, that's so funny sometimes when you lose words.
I know.
But, I mean, you've seen him. Like, it's insane. Yeah. He's a raw vegan.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Imagine a raw vegan. Have you ever done a raw vegan?
But I suppose raw is, isn't it? Unless raw, I suppose a few raw fish
and all that. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I did. I did raw plants.
You did raw plants?
I did raw plants. And what do I think about it? I think some people it really works for. It takes time. So that's the problem with, and even plant-based, is that if you're going to do it right, you need to know what you're doing. So I see lots of people who are plant-based and they're eating, I don't know, pasta all day or toast all day. And, it's like, no. If you're going to do
you
raw,
have to be plant-based.
If you're doing raw, you need to know how to use the raw fruit, vegetables and nuts and seeds to sustain you and your health and get enough of the macros in. But I do think it's a really again, it's like, if you're going to do it for a month, I think that to me would be so exciting. It's like the intention of like, I'm going to do this. It's a journey. It's for 4 weeks. I'm going to really immerse myself in it. I'm going to learn lots about how a different way of eating. And it's not forever, but I'm going to see what it makes feel. Because, I mean, some people really don't suit raw because it's quite difficult on the digestion.
I mean, Ayurveda says that you shouldn't be eating raw. You should eat as much cooked as possible, to allow for effective digestion, help the enzymes break down the food. Help them get absorbed.
But it's true. I mean, so when we do liquid days, if we're doing a liquid day, which is like soup, smoothies, the reason for doing that is because it's much easier
to digest,
because it's already cooked or it's already broken down. And so, so I suppose, I mean, and that is very true. But I guess, I mean, I think trying, at our health club, we do something different every month. And really, it's about finding out what works for you as an individual. Because as you say, it doesn't work for everyone. But the more you try, the more you can put together your, what works for you. And also knowing that you change as your age changes, as your circumstance changes. It doesn't, what works now will probably need to be adapted and amended and evolved in the future.
Yeah.
And so the more education you can get, or the more you know about yourself, the more empowered you are to do that, which I think is quite cool. And it doesn't mean that you have to live like that always. Also what it means is you can go out and go dancing with your mates and then just get back to it the next day and feel, it's all part of life.
So do you think it's good to shock the system by trying?
I thought you were talking about going out on the lash.
That will be a shock to my system. That I can promise you. I'm not used to it anymore. But just with these, with the right intentions and say a clean diet, shocking the system. So like say immersing yourself in a month-long plant-based only, if you are an omnivore, generally. Or like immersing yourself in like a spring clem juice or fresh juices or whatever, or going keto for like a month, or I can keep going. Do you know what I mean? Is it good to shock the system?
Well, I would say yes on the whole for most people, unless you're very stressed. Now, most people are, but you don't.
Yeah, because we live in these big cities. We do live a stressful life.
But if you're going to add stress onto stress, it's not fantastic. But as I said earlier, the people who want to do these sort of things are the highly stressed, high-achieving individuals.
I know.
Yeah. But metabolic flexibility is what I would call it. And actually, it's not a bad thing to do. So there are things like carb cycling, protein cycling, which means you eat one of the macros. You eat a lot of one macro a day, and then you change it the next. Because you're basically keeping your metabolism guessing. And so that does, metabolic flexibility is super important. There are some people, their body likes routine, that is for sure. So some people will not do well with it. They do much better with a consistency. But I think if your intention is to change things, like to do a 7-day juice cleanse or fast, or to do raw for a month, if the intention's there, then you will go through the process. You'll go on the journey, and aware that things might be challenging at times or difficult, or and you'll learn stuff along the way.
Personalization, right? Like they learn to listen to your body actually is a form of self-regulation and personalization.
100%.
And this is going to be a shameless plug, but for those who can't listen to their body, they can download the Foodhak app.
Yes.
So like the way we built the app is to actually help you measure and learn about yourself and rectify that relationship with food, learn about foods, find them exciting, and easy ways of unlocking these longevity tips around nutrition. So like there is this onboarding journey on the app, and you and I are going to talk about this after, but it understands you, based on your height, weight, goals, any health conditions, etc. And then it basically takes you on this nutrition journey where it's like having Rose on your WhatsApp 24/7. So like if I'm like waking up at 3 a.m., right, and I'm just like, why am I waking up at 3 a.m.? You're sleeping, but this is where technology can help us. And be like, hey, I think what you had this meal, which seemed to have not suited you because maybe it contains X, Y, and Z, which is not good for you. So maybe tomorrow try to not have that.
Amazing.
And then you're learning, okay, my body doesn't suit raw, or my body doesn't suit eating after 8 p.m., or my body doesn't suit dairy, and then you try and you learn, and then you get to a point where you're like, your relationship with food is really healthy. It's not restrictive.
Yes.
You just learn what suits you.
Yeah.
And makes you perform better. Yeah. And helps you accomplish your goals. Yeah.
I mean, it's so like learning what works for you and not looking, and that's actually the problem with things like social media and like, for example, the protein fury at the moment. Not fury, the protein rage at the moment, is that everybody looks at that and then does it, and it might not actually, without thinking about whether it's actually serving them. Is it actually serving? That's where I think personalised nutrition, things like your app or even wearing a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, for a minute, wear it for 2 weeks,
Yes.
see how well, because you'll be surprised. Some people do really well with bread, some people don't. And the other thing to know is that if there is something that is ongoing that's troubling you, go and get it investigated further, because it's kind of worth, I'd say, talking to some healthcare professional just to understand.
Functional medicine doctor.
Yeah.
Not a healthcare professional.
No,
Let's be completely honest.
Yeah.
Healthcare professional, you might just end up with a whole list of medication.
That's true.
To try and take a shortcut.
Yes.
Functional medicine practitioner.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're right. And just, it might be worth it, if you've had ongoing, people live with chronic IBS, for example, or chronic joint pain, or chronic headaches. If that is, or chronic low energy, if that is something that's been going on, I would spend the money going to see someone and get it to the bottom of it, rather than wasting it on, like I said, supplements and things that you don't even know if they suit you or not.
Yeah, agreed. Well, this has been so insightful. You have, I love geeking out on nutrition and science and personalization and fasting. And so thank you for indulging me, and thank you for all these valuable insights for our community. But also, I think let's end by just talking a little bit about why you started our health club, and what happens, like, for a member, like, when you join, like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Okay. Well, our health club evolved from doing the plans when I moved plans online. So I was doing them online for years, and then the people who were doing them were like, "But we want, more." And I had a lot of stuff on Instagram, but I wanted to sort of rationalize it in one place, and I wanted there to be a community.
Yeah.
So for members, basically, so we have exercise classes every week from the Lighthouse Club, which is just based in London. They're so great.
They're amazing. I love them.
I love them.
I love them so much.
Amazing.
And that space has great energy. They stock us, I think. They have Foodhak snacks and products and all of that.
Oh, that's good.
I'm pretty sure.
They're great.
What inspired me the most about your story, actually, was that, you are this amazing model who's chosen a holistic lifestyle rather than, what you see as the norm in the industry. And I think you're going to inspire a lot of young models that there is a different way of doing things, that you can feel beautiful both inside and outside if you choose this route of food as medicine or food as nourishment, rather than crash diets and starving yourself and having a chocolate bar as like your meal for the entire day. Or crisps. It doesn't work on the long term.
And it doesn't work, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
And for your brain.
Yeah.
You look after your brain and your emotional self.
And life is long.
Yeah.
And one should be grateful for it.
Yes, exactly. And there are so many different phases. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming. I'm sure this episode's going to be super inspiring for the community. And everyone should check out our health club.
Yeah.
I know I am going to, because who doesn't need a little extra help?
Yeah, it's
a busy, stressful life.
360 Health Club. It'll keep you on the straight and narrow.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Hak It. I hope you enjoyed the insights and stories that we shared today. Are you hungry for more? Follow us on Instagram at The Foodhak. That's a hack without a C. Or subscribe now to be the first to hear about our next episode when it drops. See you next time.